We all know JFK had secrets he kept from his wife, but his biggest secret was far more dangerous and didn't come out until after he died. Today, we're taking a look at 9 historical heroes who would definitely be cancelled today. Is that more a reflection of them or a reflection of us? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Here we go. Alexander Graham Bell is most famous for inventing the telephone, but apparently he had some issues with anyone who couldn't use his invention. We're talking about deaf people. Bell had some pretty strange views about the hearing impaired. The biggest obsession of Bell's life wasn't actually the telephone, it was providing education for the deaf and hard of hearing. But that education probably wasn't what you're thinking. Bell disliked sign language and was a proponent of oralism, the idea that deaf people should learn to talk and lip read, whether or not they wanted to. Like many people in his day, Bell was also a eugenicist who was worried about defective genes spreading through the population. Specifically, he wrote a paper about his fear that if deaf and hard of hearing people were allowed to intermarry, they might breed a new sub-race of people who couldn't hear. Interestingly, Bell's mother was hard of hearing, and his wife was deaf. Something tells me hearing impaired people would have a field day with Bell if he were alive today. Mahatma Gandhi is remembered as the father of India's independence and a global icon of non-violent resistance. But my oh my, did he have some disturbing ideas. His philosophy of satyagraha, truth and non-violence, challenged colonial powers without bloodshed. Gandhi's impact was immense, influencing movements far beyond India, from Martin Luther King Jr.'s civil rights movement to Nelson Mandela's fight against apartheid. But during his early years in South Africa, Gandhi displayed troubling attitudes towards black South Africans, referring to them in derogatory terms and opposing their gaining equal rights. At the time, his advocacy was focused exclusively on improving the status of Indians under colonial rule, while largely ignoring injustice faced by others. Gandhi's personal life was also a little odd. He conducted controversial experiments to test his commitment to celibacy, which involved sleeping next to young women, sometimes nude. These actions, while framed by him as tests of self-control, would raise serious ethical concerns today. Not only this, but his wife allegedly went to prison in his stead, where she was held for 18 months before she died, aged 47. Though Gandhi's later years reflected a more inclusive and universal philosophy, his early racism and strange personal habits are hard to overlook. Winston Churchill is widely seen as one of the great heroes of the 20th century. He also had a dark side that most people choose to forget. His wartime leadership has become the stuff of legend. As British Prime Minister during World War II, he inspired a battered country to stand firm against Nazi Germany. His speeches, full of defiance and hope, rallied the free world in its darkest hour and played a pivotal role in securing victory. But Churchill's legacy is far from unblemished. A staunch imperialist, he views Britain's colonial dominance as essential to its greatness. This ideology shaped policies that devastated colonised populations, most notably in India. During the Bengal famine of 1943, Churchill's government diverted food supplies to British troops and stockpiles, leading to millions of Indians starving. Then he blamed said famine on the Indians for having bred like rabbits. Churchill's rhetoric during this crisis revealed a chilling disregard for human life outside of Europe. His belief in the inherent superiority of Europeans not only underpinned his colonial policies, but also alienated millions of people whose suffering he dismissed as collateral damage in the pursuit of empire. While Churchill remains a symbol of resilience and leadership for many, he was a political fossil even in his own time. Saintly or not, for a woman that prioritised helping people, she sure did cut some corners. Mother Teresa, the founder of the Missionaries of Charity, spent her life among the sick and destitute in Calcutta, earning her global acclaim as a saintly figure. However, her approach to care has faced significant criticism. Many of her homes for the sick and dying were reported to have substandard conditions, poor hygiene, inadequate medical treatment, and a lack of modern healthcare practices. For Mother Teresa, suffering was seen as a spiritual virtue, a way to connect with Christ's suffering. Critics argue that this mindset often led to neglect, with her missions prioritizing salvation over alleviating physical pain. Her financial practices have also drawn scrutiny. Despite her receiving millions in donations, the missionaries of charity often failed to allocate funds effectively. She also openly accepted money from dictators like the Duvalier family of Haiti, whom she praised as friends of the poor. And she was friendly with frauds like Robert Maxwell, father of Ghislaine Maxwell. Wonderful family. In today's era of accountability, some of Mother Teresa's choices would definitely get more negative attention. Before people flood the comments, yeah, Abe Lincoln was awesome. He was maybe the best president and a great amateur wrestler and generally a tall king. His Emancipation Proclamation and push for the 13th Amendment changed the course of American history. But it's worth remembering that Lincoln also held views we would consider terrible today. Early in his presidency, he supported the idea of colonization, advocating for freed black Americans to be resettled in Africa or Central America. Lincoln doubted whether black and white Americans could ever coexist peacefully in a single society, a belief rooted in the prejudices of his time. As racist as the Confederacy was, most people in the Union were also racist by our standards. Basically, no one believed that black people were or ever could be equal to whites. While Lincoln's views evolved, he came to support limited rights for black Americans. The fact remains that his early reluctance to embrace full racial equality reflected deep societal biases. Even great leaders are shaped by the limitations of their era. Albert Einstein's bitter family life paints a different picture than we're used to seeing. Of course, his contributions to science are unparalleled. His theories of relativity revolutionized physics, shaping the way we understand the universe. Beyond science, Einstein was an outspoken advocate for peace and civil rights, using his fame to champion social causes. But Einstein's personal life reveals a more complicated character. His marriage to Mavella Marique was marred by strict, demeaning demands. In letters, he outlined rules for their relationship that treated her more as a servant than a partner. He also estranged from his sons, prioritizing his work over his family. Einstein's brilliance is unquestionable, but his personal failings remind us that even the greatest minds can struggle to live up to their ideals in private life. Thomas Jefferson is often hailed as one of America's most brilliant founding fathers, the one most closely associated with the idea of liberty. Yeah, about that. Despite his love of freedom, Jefferson had plenty of dealings with slaves and the slave trade. He authored the Declaration of Independence, a document that became a global symbol of human liberty. Jefferson's words, "All men are created equal," laid the foundation for a democratic ideal that has inspired generations. He was also a visionary architect, educator, and statesman who profoundly shaped the identity of the United States. But the truth is far more complicated. Jefferson owned over 600 individual slaves during his lifetime. Among them was Sally Hemings, a woman he enslaved with whom he fathered several children. Despite his philosophy, Jefferson remained deeply tied to the institution of slavery, profiting from it and perpetuating its existence. Even in death, Jefferson's contradictions loomed large. He freed only a handful of the people he enslaved in his will, choosing instead to leave many others to the uncertainty of the auction block. This failure to fully reconcile his ideals with his actions reveals a man willing to compromise on liberty when it benefited him personally. Who'd have thought Henry Ford was Nazi-aligned? He revolutionized modern industry by perfecting the assembly line. He made automobiles affordable to the average person, transforming transportation and the global economy. His vision of mass production didn't just change how goods were made, it shaped the 20th century's consumer culture. Ford also introduced groundbreaking labor practices such as the $5 workday, which improved the lives of many workers and set new standards for the industrial employer. However, Ford's legacy is deeply marred by his anti-Semitic beliefs. Through his newspaper, The Dearborn Independent, Ford published a series of inflammatory articles that promoted conspiracy theories about Jewish people. These writings influenced extremist ideologies worldwide, including Nazi propaganda in Germany. Adolf Hitler admired Ford, even mentioning him in Mein Kampf and awarding him the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, the Nazi regime's highest honor for foreigners. Ford's anti-Semitism was not just ideological, it had real-world consequences, fueling hatred and prejudice on a global scale. JFK is one of America's most popular presidents, but he had many secrets. And we're not just talking about his mistresses. He kept a far more dangerous secret from the people who elected him. Kennedy's presidency is remembered as a time of hope and progress. His eloquent speeches, bold vision for the space race, and leadership during the Cuban Missile Crisis cemented his place in history. His eventual support for civil rights legislation also helped pave the way for a more just America. But Kennedy's record on civil rights was not initially good. Early in his presidency, he hesitated to take action, fearing political backlash from Southern Democrats. It wasn't until the pressure of public protests and violence made inaction impossible that Kennedy embraced the civil rights movement more fully. His personal life also remains controversial. Kennedy's numerous extramarital affairs were an open secret in Washington. Today, JFK's delays on civil rights and personal indiscretions would likely dominate headlines, reminding us that even the most charismatic leaders are not immune to criticism. But his most dangerous secret was his extremely poor health. Kennedy was ill throughout his life. In fact, twice before he was even 30, he came so close to dying that priests read him his final rites. Among other ailments, Kennedy suffered from Addison's disease, a potentially deadly condition affecting the adrenal glands. As a result of consistent health issues, Kennedy was on all kinds of drugs throughout his term. Codeine, Demerol, barbiturates, amphetamines, methadone, hormones, anti-anxiety meds. Serious stuff that easily could have affected his performance. And of course he took pain meds to conceal all of it from the people who elected him. So there you have it. 9 historical figures who would definitely be cancelled today. What do you think? Were we too harsh on anyone? Or maybe not harsh enough? Did we leave anyone out? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, leave us a like. And if you want more interesting historical videos in your feed, subscribe to History Snob. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.